Yet they fought a long, bitter 8-year war with around 1 million fatalities. Saudi Arabia is Muslim, yet she granted Israel flyover rights for its planned attack on Iran. What is really going on in the Middle East? Who is on whose side? We will explain today on this edition of Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. Well, do you ever try to make sense of the Middle East? What in the world is going on there? Iran and Iraq fought a long, bitter war. And yet, once we went in against Saddam Hussein, now then Iran and Iraq have become friends, allies. It looks like if and when we leave Iraq, that Iran will move in to take over. So why does all this happen? Well, it all boils down to one thing, which it took me a while to grasp. I kept digging, I kept reading, I kept trying to figure out, okay, who's fighting whom here? I mean, Iran is very much our enemy, supposedly. Iran calls us the great Satan, calls Israel the little Satan. Iran continually says that the United States of America is going to be destroyed, that Israel is going to be destroyed. And yet Saudi Arabia ends up being our friend, but it seems like Saudi Arabia is more conservative religiously. I mean, you can't even have a Bible in Saudi Arabia. You try to convert from your Muslim religion in Saudi Arabia, the sentence is death. I'm not kidding. Death. So then why is Saudi Arabia our friend and why is Iran our enemy, and why have the people of Iraq seemingly changed sides on us here? I mean, after we spent billions of dollars, maybe into the trillions, since 2003, all of a sudden it's time for us to pull out, and it's obvious that the Iraqi government is leaning very much toward an alliance with Iran, who is supposed to be our bitter enemy. What's it all boil down to? Well, it boils down to an understanding between the two big factions of Islam, Shiite and Sunni. Iran is Shiite. Iraq is Shiite. Saudi Arabia is Sunni. Egypt is Sunni. Several other countries, about 15% of Muslims are Shiite, 85% are Sunni. So what does this mean, and what's the difference between Sunni and Shiite? We're going to try to explain some of this today, because if you don't understand this, what's going on in the Middle East right now becomes very, very baffling. Let me see if I can do somewhat of a summary here. The hatred between Sunnis and Muslims, actually between Sunnis and Shiites, goes back to 632 AD and the death of the Prophet Muhammad. The most critical issue following Muhammad's death was his succession. The forebears of the Sunnis followed the tribal tradition of having a council of elders select as the head of the Islamic community the individual most qualified to lead. The ancestors of the Shiites, on the other hand, believed that Muhammad's heirs should rule the Islamic community. So they felt like, the Shiites felt like it should be passed down through physical lineage, sort of a kingship type of situation. The conflict came to a head in the Battle of Karbala in 680 AD when the Sunnis' forefathers massacred the Prophet's grandson, Hussein, and his followers. Gleefully, the victors carried Hussein's head to Damascus and paraded it there. Is it any wonder that for the next 1,300 years there has been hatred and recurring warfare between these two sects within Islam who differ radically in their religious practices? Okay, now, we want to take a little time here because I know that if this is new to me, it's probably new to a lot of you as well. Let me just run down through a list of countries so that you'll sort of know who is Sunni, who is Shiite. Now, remember, the Shiite Iran made war against the Sunni Iraq for 8 long, bitter years, about 1 million fatalities during that time. Now, we have done Iran a huge favor, unwittingly, I guess, because we had such a vendetta against Saddam Hussein that George W. Bush went in there and removed Saddam Hussein and all of his Sunni friends, all of his co-rulers of the Ba'ath Party. They've now put them out of the government. Well, Iraq is a majority Shiite, just like Iran is, but the minority Sunni had the most power. So Saddam Hussein held the power as a Sunni Muslim. Well, once we remove him, now all of a sudden the Shiites have all been put into power. Now we reasoned as Americans, well, we believe in democracy, and therefore whoever has the majority, they should have the power. But the unintended consequence has been that now they have a Shiite government and they have a Shiite neighbor by the name of Iran, and now they are fellowshipping back and forth. They are making new alliances, even to the point, we're supposed to leave Iraq by December of this year. However, the latest noise coming out of the Defense Department from Mr. Gates says, well, if we do leave, we'll probably remain there as an occupying force on our military bases at least, and we may stay there forever. Now, everybody said this from the beginning. Now, if this is true, then we're going to stay there as a military force to preserve our claims on the nation of Iraq and also to make sure that the oil keeps flowing toward the United States of America. So, but if we do in fact withdraw, as Barack Obama said that we would withdraw, if we do withdraw, then that's going to allow Iran to move down and occupy the very bases that we built with U.S. tax dollars. So here we have probably our worst enemy on the planet right now, Iran, benefiting from our bumbling actions in Iraq. But the whole issue boils down to Sunni versus Shiite. Now, let me name for you some of the countries that are largely Sunni. Afghanistan, 84%. Bahrain, 30%. So that means Bahrain is mostly Shiite like Iran, but the Sunni holds the power. Now, remember what happened when all the Shiites hit the streets and started demonstrating in Bahrain? Saudi Arabia was invited by the king in because he knew he was getting ready to be toppled. But Saudi Arabia does not want Iran to gain control because Iran is Saudi Arabia's bitter enemy. Saudi Arabia has even said if Iran gets nuclear weapons, then Saudi Arabia will probably have to get nuclear weapons. So Saudi Arabia was invited into Bahrain, and they actually sent troops in there and put down the demonstrations that threatened to topple the government of Bahrain. And Iran screamed to high heavens and said, what do you think you're doing? You have no right to be sending your troops in. However, Saudi Arabia didn't even tell the United States. Our Secretary of Defense, Mr. Gates was there just a day or two before the invasion of Bahrain, and they didn't even tell us we're supposed to be working together. They're supposed to be our friend, but they've not trusted us now because we didn't support Mubarak. We stood on the other side down in Egypt, and so Saudi Arabia says, if that's the way you treat your friends, then we may have to find a bunch of new friends. Well, anyway, you've got Afghanistan, 84% Sunni. Let me just name the Sunnis first because you won't remember it if I don't. Egypt, 90% Sunni, so it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to work. Iran, 10% Sunni. Iraq, around 35% Sunni. Kuwait, 60% Sunni. Lebanon, 23%. Pakistan, 77%. Saudi Arabia, 90%. Syria, 74%. Turkey, 83 to 93%. The United Arab Emirates, 81%, and Yemen, 70%. Now, those are the ones that are mostly Sunni. Now, let's look at the ones that are mostly Shiite, like Iran. Bahrain, 70% Shiite. Iran, 89% Shiite. But we went in there and removed Saddam Hussein, so now then the Shiites in control. And then Iraq, 60 to 65% Shiite. I said that backwards. In Iraq, we went in and moved Saddam Hussein. The Sunni had around 35%, and the Shiite has around 65%. Well, we went in there and removed the 35%, and that puts the Shiites in control of Iraq. And then Lebanon is presently 38% Shiite, but only 23% Sunni. So what's happened is Hezbollah is allied with Iran, and they are Shiite, and therefore Hezbollah is just top of the government. The rest of Lebanon is Christian element and other religions. So now then, Lebanon has gone into the Iranian orbit because Hezbollah has been funded by Iran. Iran has been using its oil wealth to create friends. They're supporting Hezbollah. They're supporting Hamas. They're supporting the Shiites in Iraq. And then the rest of the powers are predominantly Sunni. So we have 85% of the world Sunni, 15% Shiite, and yet Iran, with its majority of Shiite, is becoming a very powerful and dominant force in the Middle East. And Iran is capitalizing on America's lip service to democracy. You know, America says, oh, we're democracy. Well, Iran says, that being the case, then since Bahrain has a Shiite majority, then you ought to support the overthrow of the government of Bahrain. Now, Bahrain is a very important ally of ours. We have a naval base there, and Bahrain is just across the Gulf from the Persian Gulf from Iran. And oh, wouldn't they love for the Shiites to control there? So this is what is going on in the Middle East right now. They're saying that it is a battle between Shiite and Sunni Muslims. Now, Iran claims, matter of fact, I have an article here before us that says that the United States is trying to pit Shiite against Sunni and causing sort of civil war among the Muslim community in order to take advantage of the whole situation.
Endtime Ministries presents End of the Age, a 30-minute commercial-free TV show hosted by Irvin Baxter. Every Monday, End of the Age airs on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., Daystar at 10 p.m., and on TBN every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. On End of the Age, Irvin depicts how modern issues like an establishment of a one-world government, the religion of Islam, a coming World War III, and more line up so clearly with Bible prophecies written over 2,000 years ago. To get tomorrow's news today, be sure to tune into End of the Age every Monday on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., Daystar at 10 p.m., and on TBN every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. Visit endtime.com for more details or call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463.
The Bible prophesies about 4 great spirits which control the actions of human beings, leaders,